welcome to our 11th episode of Crimes and Closings.
I forgot my freaking tween wardrobe today.
Oh, we should have dressed up. You know I like costumes.
Yeah, I do.
But what, like tweens today or tweens when we were tweens?
Oh man, I don't think I have the heart to wear what tweens wear today. I mean, so it would have to be like old school,
Like
full
the hair.
bangs, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Way tall bangs. You know, in the 60s when they said the women's big hair, the higher the hair, the closer to God.
Yes, that's how I live every day, which is why I was having her up.
That's what we did with the bangs, was the higher your bangs, the closer
I
to
could
God.
never perfect that. I mean, like I use Aquanet like no other. You would think that, I mean, with my hair, which is insane, I would have been able to do it.
Yes.
No, not so much.
I could do that. I'm not good with hair, but I could get that like flip and that curl with the bangs.
Yes, and then by the end of the day, it was so oily and like.
Oh my goodness. And there was no wind strong enough to blow that by the time you were done with Aquanet.
And did you have braces? Because I also
Yes.
had braces, so I was like, hi.
And did you change the color on your?
Always. Well, I had a Catholic school, so I had uniforms.
Yes.
So the only way I could ever really accessorize was shoes, jackets, braces, and hair. So I was, you can only imagine this. My hair has been green, my hair has been orange, my hair has been black.
They let you dye it?
Well, it was that
I
like,
couldn't dye.
no, it was that like supposed to be natural but turned orange. So it wasn't like, yeah, supposed to be black but kind of turned green. Yeah, so I got away with it. So I wore that, I did that, I wore an army jacket, I had like green and bright orange and yellow braces, and then my Doc Martens, which were I had a pair of Doc Martens that my dogs chewed up like 3 years ago, but I've kept them since high school. They were like my babies. And
I never had a real pair. I had the Payless pair that after the first time you wore them smelled so awful, but you had to keep wearing them because I wasn't.
They were Doc Martens, yeah, they were Doc Martens-esque.
I actually when I went to London, I went to the Doc Marten store, and then I was so cheap, even at that age, that I walked in and I was like, I've been here, I'm good, I'm sticking with my stinky Payless shoes. And you know, I walked in those Payless shoes, and those people were like,
she has one of those Payless shoes.
American.
Yeah. Well, I got mine. Mine kind of looked like Ronald McDonald shoes. They were red, burgundy, and they were on clearance for $80. And so my grandmother, for like,
there's a reason they were on.
Yeah, there was a reason they were on clearance. So my grandmother, it was like some holiday, and she's like, I saved up half of it. She paid for half of it.
Oh.
So yeah, so they were my docs. And when I graduated from high school, you had to carry something up to the stage to like represent you.
No, you didn't.
And I'm like.
Your Doc Martens.
Yes.
Oh
I was definitely a rebel without a clue. I mean, when I was high school, I was like, I'm raging against the machine, but I don't know where I'm raging against. Yes. So anybody from high school that knew high school Jenny, you can attest that I was a big old bag of special, and I was obsessed with like V.C. Anders books and like The Crow, and I was all sorts of special, and thought that my life was really hard.
Oh, if only our lives were as hard as we thought they were then.
Yeah.
Mine was my bomber jacket. I had a black leather bomber jacket, and it's the same thing that my grandparents had saved up, and then I had paid, and that was like my hiding place. Like, if I had my bomber jacket on.
I can see Dio with like dyed black hair and really heavy eyeliner and the bangs.
Oh no, I actually went red with my hair.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I liked the red, but I could never like obtain the right color of red.
I mean, look at this complexion I made for. I'm surprised I don't have red hair. I have to bring in a picture because I do have a picture of the red hair with the hair flip.
We need to see that picture and post.
I will.
We're gonna put it right here.
Beforehand. And honestly, we have to. Who wore it better, me now or me then? I mean, there's still 20 years difference.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Good times.
So are we going to talk about a case or just reminisce?
Yes, we are going to talk about a case today. And actually, Dio was kind enough to let me kind of take over this one. So if you don't like me, scroll away. So we're going to talk about Mary Ellen Wilson, otherwise known as Mary Ellen McCormick. So this kind of goes along with one of my passion pieces, which is Jackson County CASA, which I'll kind of talk about later. But I was doing a search, and there were some pretty heavy cases, so I wanted to keep it a little more light is not the right word because this is still a heavy case, but it's historic and it brought about a bunch of change.
Maybe doesn't hit so close to home right
It
now.
doesn't hit so close to home. So and like I said, for what I love cases in which something drastically changes for the better because of this case, and not so thoughtless and without a cause, like I was when I was 20. So Mary Ellen Wilson, otherwise known as Mary Ellen McCormick, was born in Hell's Kitchen in 1864. Which
Already a rough start.
Yeah, already a rough start. I can't even imagine. I've read quite a few books and I can't even imagine what Hell's Kitchen was like. She was born to Frances Connor Wilson and Thomas Wilson. Shortly after, Thomas Wilson was drafted into the Irish Brigade and fought in the
I was gonna say those sound like really strong Irish names.
Yes. Between that and Hell's Kitchen, we know
Yes.
that. Yeah. So he was drafted into the Irish Brigade and unfortunately died in the Civil War. So that left Frances. And like what happened a lot of the time, she was a single mom. She couldn't both work and take care of her kids. There was no daycare, obviously. So she ended up kind of farming her out and to live with the family, the Score family.
Okay.
So she'd pay like a stipend and would do visitation.
Okay.
Shortly, she was about 2. So shortly at this point,
wow.
she started disappearing.
Frances.
Frances. She'd not make her visitation. She would make her payments. And the Scores finally were like, we can't keep her.
What happened to Frances?
They don't know for sure. They think she probably passed away.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in Hell's Kitchen, unfortunately, there were a lot of, I can't even imagine.
It wasn't a great place.
Not a great place. Not a great place. So she ended up going into the New York City Department of Charities.
Okay.
So about the same time, again, she's 2 years old. She's had a pretty rough start for 2 years. A couple named Thomas McCormick and his wife, Mary McCormick.
Also strong Irish.
Yes, also strong. And there's a lot of strong Irish Marys, Frances. I mean, yeah, it's all over. They ended up coming and saying Thomas had a penchant for bragging about his extramarital affairs.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
He sounds like a winner.
he's special.
Yeah.
So they ended up he was convinced that he had an affair with Frances and that therefore Mary Ellen was actually his child.
Oh,
Yeah.
soap opera twist.
Yes.
So did he know that Mary Ellen, did they just want to adopt a child, or they were in it because it was
because they had actually lost 3 children to various they called it like slum disease. So I'm assuming it's because everything was really dirty and there was a lot of disease going around at that point. So it was kind of a mix of, well, I kind of got the feeling it was like ego for Thomas. That he had
obviously he needed that.
Yeah, but then what transpires is interesting because it doesn't align with just somebody that wants to adopt a child.
Okay.
So very quickly after they adopted Mary Ellen or brought her in, they signed something called they're basically indentured servants. So they signed something called an indentured agreement, and the only way you could break that agreement is by bailing them out of this indentured agreement.
So this 2-year-old
Yes.
already had to work her way out of the servitude.
Correct. So shortly after this happened, Thomas passed away.
No.
Yeah. And Mary remarried to, let me find it.
Can I just say, did you ever watch Murder, She Wrote? And
Oh,
everywhere she
yeah.
went, someone died?
Yeah, it's kind of like this. Yeah.
Everywhere Mary Ellen's going. I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead. So he passes away.
Yep. So the widow married a Frances Connolly.
Okay.
So not Frances Connor Wilson, Frances Connolly.
Okay.
So this is not the female Frances, the male Frances. And they moved to an apartment on West 41st Street.
We have a diagram. Do we have a flow chart?
Yes. So this is where things kind of got interesting. The neighbors started getting involved. They started seeing a child that obviously had been neglected, was covered, bruises, bloody, not wearing shoes, obviously very thin.
Which it has to be really bad because in New York in 1864, if you're noticing a child is.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the neighbor named Etta Engel Wheeler actually kind of concocted a plan. She went to the new Mrs. Frances Connolly and said, hey, our neighbor needs some help. She's housebound. She just really needs some help. Would you mind helping me care? And Mrs. Connolly, being the epic standing citizen that she is, said, of course.
No sarcasm.
No sarcasm whatsoever. Said, of course. And so one of the times in which she was taking care of the neighbor, Etta Wheeler ended up going in and actually seeing firsthand how this little girl was living. And was shocked.
Sneaky.
I know, she was shocked. So then she started contacting different welfare agencies, and she realized that there was really no laws in place, let alone no organizations that really wanted to take on the laws that were already in place. Most of those laws were like workplace laws, so that they couldn't, work more than 12 hours a day, or.
But even, I thought that came around more early.
Yeah,
1900s.
Industrial, or, yeah.
Yeah.
There were still some of them, I mean, and they were like really obscure, like they couldn't go down into coal mines for more than 10 hours a day. I mean, there were some laws, but they were very, like.
Nothing for the actual welfare of the child.
Correct. So she reached out to the only other person that she thought was single-minded, was minded like she was. And that was a gentleman named Henry Berger, Bergh, so it's kind of Berg,
Bergh.
Which is a nice solid German name.
Yes.
And he was actually the founder of the American Society for Prevention of the Cruelty to Animals.
Yes, because back then animals were treated better than children.
Yes. So, and together the two of them were like, okay, something has got to give. We are not protecting these children at all.
Mm.
So between the two of them, they were actually able to bail out essentially Mary Ellen and pay off her indentured servitude and get her back.
Wow.
And then in 74, the New York State Supreme Court took it to trial.
Really?
Yes.
The abuse?
The abuse, Mary Connolly.
Okay.
And
I'm guessing Etta was pushing behind that.
Yes.
Have you ever done your family history? Do you know if you're related to Etta? Because I feel like I could be sitting here with someone saying, and Judy Olsen paid me.
That is very sweet, but no. And actually, it's really funny because that's actually, I just started doing all of that. Because I come from Poe's and I'm a huge Edgar Allan Poe, so I'm like bound and determined to try to get.
That would be
Yeah,
incredible.
I took the family back to 1754, so I'm not quite there. I mean, I'm not related yet, but I can tell. But I did that last night. It was crazy.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So they basically got this child, and they ended up placing her back with the New York Department of Charities.
Okay.
And Etta was like, this is not right. I want somebody that I know to take care of this child. So she worked with family members and was able to get Mary Ellen adopted by some family members. And so this 10-year-old little girl ends up having,
she's 10.
she's 10 now. So 8 years she dealt with that, with Mary Connolly.
What happened with the Supreme Court? I interrupted you about
No,
that.
you're fine. She got a whopping year in jail.
The mom did?
Yeah, 1 year.
So she put her daughter through 8 years of hell, and she got 1 year.
1 year.
That's not fair.
No, but
if there were no laws in place,
there was no laws in place.
then what did legally she technically do wrong?
Correct. And the story does have, I mean, there's.
All right. Will I feel better at the end of it?
You will feel better at the end of it.
Okay.
Because I felt better at the end of it. So when this girl took the stand, and I'm going to read this because I want to get, I think how she said it, especially at 10, is so passionate. She was quoted as saying, and this happened on April 9th, 1874. My father and mother are both dead. I don't know how old I am. I have no recollection of a time when I did not live with the Connollys. Mama has been in the habit of whipping me and beating me almost every day. She used to whip me with a twisted whip, a rawhide. The whip always left black and blue marks on my body. I now have the black and blue marks on my head, which was made by Mama, and also a cut on the left side of my forehead, which was made by a pair of scissors. She struck me with the scissors and cut me. I have no recollection of ever having been kissed by anyone, having ever been kissed by Mama. I have never been taken on Mama's lap and caressed or petted. I've never dared to speak to anybody because if I did, I would get whipped. I do not know for what I was whipped. Mama never said anything to me when she whipped me. I do not want to go back and live with Mama because she beats me so. I have no recollection of ever being on the street in my life. So she had been, by the time they went through all the charges and everything that had happened, they found out that she had been regularly and severely beaten, burned, struck with scissors, had insufficient food, was forced to sleep on the floor, no warm clothes in cold weather, left alone in a darkened locked room, forbidden to go outside except at night, and forced to do heavy labor.
Yeah.
So for all that, she got a year.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's horrific. Every child needs to be, my son, I'm sure at times is like, mommy, stop kissing me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every child deserves that.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. I remember, I mean, some of the stories, and I actually am not gonna, I guess I probably, there's been, my sons have told me some pretty interesting stories. And one of them in particular has a very vivid memory of crying to the point where he was so tired in which he just fell backwards and fell asleep. So if nobody would come and get him and love him and stuff like that. So it is amazing. He was 6 when I got him. So it's amazing how much they remember at times like that. So yeah, this little
And
girl's
she's
10.
10.
Mhm. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So when she was 24, she married Louis Shute, who was a widower that had 3 children. They ended up having 2 children together. One of them they named Etta, the first one, after the woman that rescued her.
Oh.
And the second one was named Florence. And then they also adopted a little girl named Eunice.
So they even adopted. So they kind of completed a circle.
Yep. Mary Ellen was described as an incredibly kind person, but very solemn. And Florence remembered that every time an Irish jig came on, she would get real lively.
Me too.
Me too. And she died at the age of 92 on October 30th of 1956.
She lived a long life.
Yeah, she lived a long life. So for those god-awful 10 years, she had 8 seemingly good ones. And not only did that, but because of this case, they ended up creating the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children.
Good.
So,
and that had to be one of the original.
Yeah. There was one about a boy that it was pretty horrific that caused some changes, but nothing to this magnitude. So she's really truly considered the first child abuse case that spurred a change.
Wow.
Yeah.
How sad that it took that level though for us to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, and so much of the time, I mean, and it is interesting because I was also doing a little research, and one of the things I was reading was that so the children finally started getting some laws around them, but the Native American people, those children really did not get any laws surrounding them until 1974. So we're talking 100 years from 1874 to 1974.
Well, the whole Native American story just is completely.
That's gonna be
that's a whole
season in
issue.
itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my, we could be here for days.
Yeah. So, so how does this kind of involve with what I do and part of the real estate thing that we are going to talk about? So right now, my real estate team Olson Properties, is doing a school supply drive. Last year, we ended up getting 22 backpacks, and this year our goal is 30. If you're interested in donating, reach out. I'll put my contact information in.
Put a link in.
Yeah, and put a link in. So if you want to do
this all involves taking care of
foster kids
who can't take care of themselves
right
now.
Right. And the fact that, like I said, it's so cool that 2 things, and I'm passionate about both of them, but 2 things that don't have voices, animals and children, came together to kind of create this whole new way of thinking. So if you want to donate a backpack full of supplies, you just donate supplies, we end up packing them together. So it's a lot of fun. This is our 2nd year of doing the backpacks. We always do the when Dee and I first met, actually, one of our running jokes was the fact we were suckers for Christmas trees.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, do you remember that? I think that was like our first or second
And
conversation.
mine is especially old people.
Yes.
So I'll clear out a
Walmart.
senior center Christmas tree, and if there's kids, Jenny will clear out.
Yeah,
So if
pretty much.
bring
So-
us into wherever you have trees, because one or the other of us will take
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, there was not a Christmas goes by that I don't get a phone or a picture, or she gets a picture from me going, dang it, Walmart's got their tree out.
Yes, and 10 of those stockings, and I will buy everything on there.
Yep, because it is. One of my other stories that I always tell, and how little some of these kids have. When my son came to me, it was May 26th, and I remember the caseworker pulling into our driveway, and I saw this little face peeking out. This is my 6-year-old at the time, and he was wearing a stocking cap. And I'm like, bud, what's up with the stocking cap in May? And he's like, I've never had a stocking cap before. And so, his requests then for Christmas were like socks, underwear, pajamas. I mean, it's really heartbreaking. So yeah, it's also, it's just amazing how much they appreciate some of these things. And school supplies, I mean, so few of them have ever had new school supplies. So having something that they can write their name on and it's truly theirs is a huge deal.
Yeah.
So,
And the whole point of this, that's the real estate part, is
Yes.
her team especially is deeply involved in CASA. But the Jackson County CASA is stepping in the gap for the
100%.
children who can't speak for themselves in the court system. Someone is going in to say, this is what their best interest is. Do you want to explain that a little bit more for people who are?
So the children's division, really, their goal is for reunification of the family. So they end up putting things in place to kind of help the family reunify. CASA steps in, and our only goal is really the best interest of the child. And unfortunately, sometimes reunification and the best interest of the child are two very different things. So there's a lot of meetings. You have to really get to know a case.
And it's all volunteer work.
It's all volunteer. Now we have supervisors. There's a handful of supervisors and then a handful of attorneys.
Yes.
All great people. I cannot say enough great things about them.
But this is something anybody could
Anybody
do
can do it.
and take
You have to
some
be over
class.
20. Yeah, you have to be over 21. You have to take the class, and you have to. I think it's 30 hours, 15 in classroom, 15 outside of classroom, and then 12 hours of continuing education every year.
And you can be involved or as you want to.
Yeah, so this is my 9th year, so I'm a little more comfortable. I have 3 active cases right now. My first case was really easy. When I was getting used to things, it was a relative placement. And so basically it was just kind of biding time for making sure the kids were safe and comfortable until the relative could adopt them. And that was in the best interest of the kids. Some cases you get into and they become kind of crazy.
Well, because Jenny has she walks in and says, give me your worst.
Yeah.
Thank God you do, because somebody's got to do this.
It's definitely interesting, but there's, you don't have to take on 3 cases. You don't have to take on tons of kids. There are cases that they're looking for. One of my cases now, I joke with him about the fact that he's a little guy. I mean, he's young and he's with a relative placement, and I go and see him and he gives me a hug and a high five. And, I touch base with, daycare and family and all of that, make sure he's doing good. So there's things like that. And so I have a lot of teenagers usually. So I'm always like, I'm going to go see the baby. And that's always really exciting. So you don't have to do a ton, doing a case here and there, or even just learning and going through the training to see what it's about, is huge, and decide whether or not,
because anything helps, and our court system is overloaded.
Very. We are at a fraction of the caseworkers that we need to really be doing things to do things correctly. And the nice thing about CASA, the amount of support you have. One of my poor supervisors is on freaking vacation right now, and I probably texted him 15 times this weekend because we had a couple things happen, and he answered my questions, and I think he still loves me. I mean, he's still answering my questions. But the support, and then you have a bunch of people that are there to support you. The director is amazing. I mean, I cannot say enough amazing things about this organization. So especially in a time, I mean, you watch TikTok, you watch Facebook. We have a lot of keyboard warriors right now that are really big into giving their opinion.
Foster care right now, especially is
yeah. And I do this at election time too. I'm like, here's a volunteer list of places you can go volunteer instead of running your mouth, because running your mouth is not making the world a better place. But this is something that you can easily do and makes huge difference in these kids' life.
They need voices. They can't speak, or if they speak, they don't even know what to speak about. And somebody has to step in and say, from an objective standpoint, this is what's best for them. Yep.
And I want to read you a couple of statistics, and I know statistics can get a little boring, but currently on a daily basis, the average, and this is from October 20 to 21, so this year has not come out yet, there is a daily average of 1,550 kids in foster care.
Wow.
That's just in Jackson County.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you think about some of the surrounding counties, Jackson obviously is the busier ones, but we have Clay and Platte and Johnson and Cass. Yeah. All of that. So CASA themselves last year helped 1,170 of those children, 29,718 volunteer hours. There are 381 active volunteers, which is a they've done an amazing job with training and getting volunteers, but we need more. 147 CASA children were adopted or placed with permanent guardians last year. 220 CASA children were reunified with more than one or more biological parents. 4 CASA young adults transitioned into independent living. We have some youth aging out of the system is a real deal. And they set them up. They have youth older youth liaisons, and they like teach them to drive. They help them get their driver's license
that you would typically learn from a parent or parental figure and don't have.
Balancing a checkbook, how to open an account,
Well,
get
they need to
insurance.
teach that in school.
I know they do, but I know that's amazing. So they've set up these young adults into independent living situations. 328 children received gifts through the holiday drive, and 264 children received school supplies. And the average time spent in care is less than 24 months. So that's huge. That's huge. So yeah, I can't say, that's kind of usually when you think of me, you think short sales, you think real estate, and you think CASA. I mean, that's my big rocks are those, and I wouldn't change anything about it.
And thank goodness we have you for that.
Well,
and speaking as an adopted child, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. It's especially close to my heart, but somebody's got to speak for them. And we've come so much further than farther, one of those, farther. Since Mary Ellen. And her only recourse being to talk to the Humane Society.
Just having somebody that finally, so we got to understand, but it goes hand in hand because they're voiceless things.
But we still have so much further to go.
Further to go. And the volunteering and the fact that, one of the running jokes, when I was first in school, I was pretty convinced I was going to be a social worker. So I was going through the classes and doing everything that I could. And I started realizing that there were some rules and regulations I didn't agree with. And I know, shocking. And so I really was looking for a way in which I wasn't kind of confined by laws that sometimes didn't make sense. And so my caseworker to my kids' biological parents was very straightforward. And he was nice, he was kind about it, but he was very direct with them in a way that everybody was also kind of tiptoeing around. And I believe that direct conversation is what created the opportunity for us to adopt my boys, which have been my greatest joy in my entire life. So I remember looking at him and going, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I love him to death. He's great. But I'm really proud of the fact and how I've grown in the last 9 years in being able to say, I really like you as a person, but my responsibility is here.
Yes.
And I want to do what's best. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's leaving a really loving foster family and placing them with a relative. Sometimes it's removing them from a relative and putting in a foster family. It's not the easiest choice. But at the end of the day, I can put my head on my pillow and know that I made a difference here, here, and here, and I did the best I possibly could for these kids.
You were someone's Etta.
I was somebody's Etta.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate that. I can only aspire to continue to be somebody's Etta.
And we need more. So if you're interested at all,
reach out.
Jenny will link it up.
Yeah, reach out. I love having conversations about, and I'm very much to my boy's chagrin, very transparent about our story. And the more foster families I can help bring along and kids that I can get in and out of care and where they need to be, then the happier I'll be. Between short sales and helping kids, those are kind of my two passion pieces. So thank you for letting me talk about CASA today. And
you're very welcome.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with more real estate tips and tricks, and hopefully we can seamlessly, this was kind of a nice seamless, like we're gonna do a true crime foster care story.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about foster care.
Yeah. I'll have to, man, that's really putting the pressure on for 2 weeks.
You're in trouble. I've actually started putting in my calendar, like the crimes I want to cover, because we have like a list going, so.
I know it's bad, and every time I hear a new one, I'm like,
that's
piece of candy, piece of candy, piece of candy.
It's amazing we get any work done, isn't it?
It is. It's only taken us most of the day to get this part done. But we've had fun doing it, that's the point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
No.
So thank you. And Jinx. And we'll see about bringing our hair back, or at least Please provide me pictures of our awkward.
Let's do it.
I have just the picture, the
Okay.
picture that, well, then there was the one picture I took that was in the really crazy brown dress. I have like weird mushroom hair. And then I have this like rat tail thing that I got in Cancun. That would be the one I show.
All right, so watch our Facebook feed.
Yes,
And we will post
some pictures.
teen pictures. And it'll be good.
And if you know us from teen life and you have pictures of us, feel free to share.
Yeah, there is no shame. Tag us in it. We will laugh with you.
Yes, we will. So have a great 2 weeks. We'll see you soon.
See ya.
Okay, I feel like that one.